Making headlines tonight. Uncharted waters. Sri Lanka votes for a resolution against the United States.
This is the first right decision in foreign policy.
Trump, however, sounded a warning beforehand.
Vote against us. We'll save a lot. We don't care.
Addressing issues, construction of a new oil tank in Kolonnawa gets underway.
This tank will give us 11,000 metric tons of storage capacity.
Too complicated. Politicians call for nomination paper completion process to be simplified. Victory at last. Separatist bloc wins the Catalan election with an absolute majority in Catalonia's parliament. The Touring Trophy, the FIFA 2018 World Cup trophy to arrive in Sri Lanka during its global tour. Good evening. Joining you first at 9 on Other Derana 24/7 with news from across Sri Lanka and around the world. I'm Indivari Amuatha. We begin with your developing story tonight. An unprecedented diplomatic row broke out at the UN a few days ago when US President Donald Trump threatened countries the world over that the United States funding to states will be slashed if they vote against the United States in a resolution against its move to relocate its embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem in Israel. However, things did not go according to plan for Trump as the US lost the vote overwhelmingly. 128 countries voted against the move, while 9 voted in favor, with 35 countries absent. Sri Lanka, in the meantime, voted against the United States. Analysts say this is a positive measure of Sri Lanka's foreign policy.
President Trump suggested Wednesday that billions of dollars in U.S. foreign aid could hinge on how countries vote on a UN resolution condemning his decision to recognize Jerusalem as Israel's capital and move the U.S. embassy there. In a cabinet meeting at the White House, Trump said that he would, quote, watching those votes in the General Assembly.
They take hundreds of millions of dollars and even billions of dollars, and then they vote against us. Well, we're watching those votes. Let them vote against us. We'll save a lot. We don't care.
U.S. Ambassador to the UN, Nikki Haley, also attempted to put pressure on other countries not to vote against Washington, vowing to take names.
The United States will remember this day in which it was singled out for attack in the General Assembly for the very act of exercising our right as a sovereign nation. We will remember it when we are called upon to once again make the world's largest contribution to the United Nations. And we will remember it when so many countries come calling on us, as they so often do, to pay even more and to use our influence for their benefit.
Sri Lanka, along with the other 127 countries like Russia and China, voted in favor of the resolution condemning the United States' move to relocate its embassy to Jerusalem. But how realistic is this threat? And is Sri Lanka vulnerable to US economic pressure? We asked that question from 2 former ambassadors who worked as the Sri Lankan representative to the United Nations.
This is the first right decision in foreign policy we have made since, 2015 or maybe even a little before. So I think we are moving in the direction of President Sirisena's foreign policy rather than the policy that was prevalent at least from 2015 onwards. I think it's a very good thing. Sri Lanka has been principled before, even in the face of threats. And this shows that you can stand up against the United States when it's the right thing to do. 128 countries did so, and we were one of them. I think it proves that the United Nations is not a puppet of the United States, as some people think.
2 or 3 points to be remembered. Sri Lanka was not isolated. In fact, it was with the majority of countries, 129, I believe. So it's very difficult, even for the United States, to punish 129 countries, which included some of its closest friends and allies. We also have to remember that there was a Security Council resolution the previous week, which the US vetoed. In the circumstances, I think Sri Lanka acted correctly and consistent with principle in voting with the majority. I personally believe that international relations should not be conducted on the basis of threats. We condemn that sort of approach on the part of other countries.
Since 2001, the United States has provided over $600 million to Sri Lanka. In 2015, this figure was at $22 million. However, under President Trump's new budget, funding to foreign countries like Sri Lanka will be slashed in over 30%. Analysts say that Sri Lanka would lose over $38 million in funding from the USAID Economic Support Fund in 2018.
In the first place, the Americans don't have the money. If the Americans had the money, this pro-American government wouldn't have given Hambantota to the Chinese and wouldn't be ready to give Trincomalee and Mattala to India. I mean, they can't give it to the Americans because the Americans just don't have the money. And economically, the rising power is China.
Those threats only serve to underline the growing isolation of the United States as far as the international community is concerned on the key issues of international politics today. And I think that's really unfortunate. I don't think that Sri Lanka is going to suffer any type of punitive consequences as a result of voting in the way that we did.
So, what was the reason behind the vote against the United States? In a communique released this evening, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs said that the decision to vote in favor of the resolution was based on Sri Lanka's position that it is only by realizing the vision of two states living side by side in peace, security, and mutual recognition. President Trump says that his decision to move the embassy to Jerusalem and recognize the ancient city as the capital of Israel is merely a campaign promise he made to his people. If the past is of any indication that President Trump will continue on an America First path, then it remains to be seen as to how much this threat would come to play for countries like Sri Lanka.
In the meantime, Minister of Health, Nutrition and Indigenous Medicine, Dr. Rajatha Senaratne said that Sri Lanka is of the stance that Jerusalem will not be considered as the capital of Israel. He said this addressing a protest rally against the decision of naming Jerusalem as Israel's capital.
The protest rally against the decision of naming Jerusalem as Israel's capital was held in Colombo New Town Hall this evening.
The United Nations has taught a good lesson to all the world powers today. Whoever is in power in this country, we have been friends with Palestine and we will be. We do not consider Jerusalem to be the capital of Israel. Despite holding different ideologies, it is a victory that we achieved together to stand for the liberation of Palestine. Very small nations, including Sri Lanka, didn't care about the noise the US president was making and voted for Palestine. The real friends of Sri Lanka are the states that appreciate justice, but not the imperialists. I'm proud that we had the right stance this time and stood up. We should always stand up.
Moving on to other local stories, Minister of Petroleum Resources Development Arjuna Ranatunga acknowledges that discussions are underway between the Indian Oil Company and the Ceylon Petroleum Corporation to refurbish the oil tank farm in Trincomalee. The matter was brought to light at a function held in Kulunnawa today.
In order to safely meet the fuel requirement, we need more storage and pipe facilities, and we need state-of-the-art techniques for oil distribution. We're focusing on those areas. I too wonder why measures were not taken even though a cabinet paper was submitted and approved about 9 to 10 years ago over the matter. The political authority only wanted to look into the matter following the fuel issue. We held discussions to build 6 more tanks. I usually pay attention when the money of this country is being wasted. I side with the workers and do not express views while siding with the rulers. The tanks in Trincomalee have become a main topic of discussion. No one wanted anything to do with them for years. There are 18 years left in the IOC's contract and we are in discussion to lay down a development plan while using the facility ourselves.
We have realized the importance of having sufficient storage to make sure we have sufficient fuel to supply to the needs of our people. When we do infrastructure development, storage is a key factor in addition to the pipelines and other facilities that we need. So it's a special day for us. This tank will give us around 11,000 metric tons of storage capacity to store 92 petrol. We have plans to continue building storage. This year we want to build up to about 65,000 metric tons capacity. We are in the process of launching a tender to facilitate that.
President Maithripala Sirisena stresses that government should use public funds prudently with fiscal discipline. The head of state made this remark at a progress review meeting of the Pibidemu Polonnaruwa District Development Programme held in Polonnaruwa today.
Public money should be used prudently, and it is necessary that we do all this work with monetary discipline. The mortuary of the Bakamuna Hospital has a capacity of 35 bodies. I don't know whether at least 2 or 3 people die within a month. These are very serious issues. Official residence of the Director General of Polonnaruwa Hospital is constructed at a cost of 47 million rupees. This incident relates to the construction of the District Secretary's bungalow during the past government. That bungalow was not built for the use of the District Secretariat, but for someone else.
ප්‍රශ්න වැඩි වෙලා තියෙනවා සර්. අලි වෙඩි නෑ අපිට අලි. ඇයි අලි වෙඩි නැත්තේ? තියෙන අලි වෙඩි ප්‍රමාණය බෙදලා දෙනවා. ඉතින් කොච්චර දුන්නත් ඉල්ලනවා.
Whatever they say, there is fear among villagers. They will not step out for a funeral or for a meritorious deed. In fact, they are afraid of the elephants than the LTTE. They don't even maintain the electric fence. Fodder should be especially made accessible to elephants within the Somawati and Madurai reservations. And illegal cattle should also be cleared. Then we can move for a lasting solution.
Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe says the government now has vision, unity and a plan which wasn't in place before, and it will aid the development progress of the country. Addressing a ceremony in Paduka yesterday, the Premier added that Sri Lanka should seek rapid development in order to benefit from the Indian Ocean region.
A new vision has emerged due to the establishment of a national government by us, led by President Maithripala Sirisena. We should lay the main foundation for the development of the country. We should increase the development of Colombo, and it should be made a major city in the region. We will also build megapolis incorporating Colombo, Gampaha and Kalutara. It is a part of the vision to strengthen the economy of Sri Lanka. We can develop Sri Lanka through urbanization. Up until now, there was no plan, vision or unity. But now we have all three, so we are hoping to move ahead. The Indian Ocean region has the most rapid development globally. In order to benefit from it, we should have rapid development ourselves.
And the deadline for submission of applications for postal voting at the upcoming local government elections falls at midnight tonight. The Elections Commission stated that no additional applications will be accepted via post or through returning officers once the window for acceptance is closed.
The second phase of nomination submissions for the 2018 local government elections came to a close at noon yesterday. The Election Commission had accepted 2,049 nomination papers for 341 local government bodies, among which 52 nomination papers were rejected.
The UNP had not affixed stamps to their affidavits. An affidavit without a stamp is invalid. We will go to courts about this. Election rules and regulations are too strict. If someone wants to run for elections, they should be given the opportunity. A simpler method to fill nomination papers must be devised. Preparation of nomination papers is a technical task. There could be major errors when it is executed by untrained personnel.
Meanwhile, 7 Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna candidates for the Maharagama Urban Council filed a writ petition in the Supreme Court against the rejection of their nomination paper. The chairman of the Election Commission, returning officer in charge of Maharagama, and the general secretaries of SLFP, UNP and JVP were named as respondents.
Petitioners state that the returning officer had rejected their nomination paper on the grounds that a female candidate had been erroneously entered as male, subjecting them to injustice. Meanwhile, a discussion on the implementation of election laws was held between the Election Commission and the police.
We clearly stated that once nomination papers are accepted, election rallies will be prohibited. There were media reports that election laws were not implemented in the case of 7 rallies. Yesterday, the senior DIG in charge of elections issued a notice to DIGs in charge of relevant areas demanding their explanation.
Minister of Transport and Civil Aviation Nimal Siripal de Silva expresses confidence that President Maithripala Sirisena will take prompt action against those found guilty in the central bank bond issue. He said this remark in the backdrop of the impending release of the report by the Presidential Commission of Inquiry on the bond issue on the 31st of this month. The minister was addressing a media briefing at the SLFP headquarters in Colombo today.
That you have to ask the President. But my perception is that President has no reason to delay taking action. I am sure the President will promptly take action on the recommendation of the Commission.
The minister also touched on the upcoming local government elections.
I think the SLFP people at the grassroots level, although some of the leaders have not identified who the political enemies are, they have the competency and knowledge to identify who their real political enemies. So we are depending on our party cadres and our party people to correctly identify the political enemy. That depends on how the people react, no?
Pertaining to former Navy spokesperson Commodore DKP Dasanayake, whose remanded over the alleged abduction of 11 Tamil youths was taken up today at the Colombo Fort Magistrates Court. Appearing before court, witness to the incident, B.M. Vijayakanthan stated that his statement which was given to the Criminal Investigation Department had been produced before the courts with errors.
Former Navy spokesperson Commodore DKP Dasanayake and 6 other suspects were produced before the Colombo Fort Magistrate Lanka Jayaratna. During the proceedings, witness B.M. Vijayakanthan, who had previously given a statement to the CID, claimed that his statement had not been read to him and erroneous facts had been included in it. Representing the witness, Attorney at Law Udaya Gammanpilla requested the court to allow the witness to make a statement before the court in Tamil. Colombo Fort Magistrate Lanka Jayaratna stated that as a Tamil language interpreter would be required, she would notify the Judicial Service Commission. The case will be taken up again on the 2nd of January.
Let's now take a look at a few other stories making news from across Sri Lanka.
A stash of narcotic pills illegally imported to the country, estimated to be worth around 25 million rupees, was taken into custody by police in Paliagura today. 2 suspects were apprehended together with a stock of narcotic pills. A soldier residing in Uhana in Ampara commenced a march from Nagavihare in Jaffna to Kataragama Devalaya. The other Derana correspondent said that the march towards Kataragama Devalaya is a votive over the victory in the 30-year conflict. Keselgamu Oya, a main river which flows into the Kasalri reservoir, has been polluted due to furnace oil and garbage from a tea factory in Bogavanthalava. A coastline of Arachikatua is badly eroded due to a rock barrier put in place to prevent erosion. The rock barrier was placed by the Coast Conservation Department at a cost of 30 million rupees due to the erosion of coastline recently.
You are watching Sri Lanka's award-winning news channel, Derana 24/7.
Well, at the Sri Lankan stock market today, before we move on to the stock update, the central bank today announced a 30 billion rupee bond auction to be held on Thursday next week. Meanwhile, the Colombo equities closed operations for the Christmas holidays following yet another lackluster, dull trading session. Meanwhile, foreign investors were net buyers of 10 million rupees worth of shares, with net inflows seen in Ceylon Tobacco Company and Carson's Cumberbatch. Let's cross over to take a look at how the currency rates were today. Supporters of former Catalan leader Carles Puigdemont celebrated election results in Barcelona, which put the separatist bloc ahead of the Unionists, with an absolute majority in Catalonia's parliament.
A pro-independence absolute majority opens a new, uncertain chapter and casts doubts over Prime Minister Mariano Rajoy's ability to draw a line under the political crisis that has damaged Spain's economy and prompted a business exodus away from Catalonia. The election had become a de facto referendum on how to support for the separatist movement, has fared since Rajoy sacked Puigdemont's government for holding a banned referendum on the 1st of October to split with Spain and unilaterally declare independence. Meanwhile, Catalan leader Carles Puigdemont said the absolute majority won by separatists in the regional election was a victory of the Catalan Republic over the Spanish state.
You are watching Sri Lanka's award-winning news channel, Derana 24/7.
Well, in sports, the crucial second T20 match between India and Sri Lanka is currently underway at Indore. India scored a mammoth 260 for the loss of 5 wickets, making it the highest total by the side in T20 format. Opener Rohit Sharma scored 118, while setting the record for the most sixes with 25. In their chase, Sri Lanka is currently on 60 for the loss of 1 wicket.
Likes to go at the ball. This one's even bigger. Go get another ball. No! No matter what the field is. There's 4. No boundary in this over. Yes, boundary in this over. Now that's a missed time.
The trophy of the 2018 FIFA World Cup is scheduled to be taken on tour across 54 countries around the globe, and Sri Lanka is its first stop. The trophy is due to arrive in the island on the 23rd of January next year.
Russia to host one of the most awaited sporting events of the world, FIFA World Cup 2018. In September this year, the FIFA World Cup Trophy Tour kicked off in Moscow, Russia. The tour stayed in Russia until December before going global to cover over 50 countries across 6 continents. It will return to the host country in May, just ahead of the 2018 FIFA World Cup. In the trophy's global tour, Sri Lanka will be the first destinations enabling a glimpse of the trophy with its arrival in the island on the 23rd of January next year. The trophy will be on display for the public at the BMICH on the 24th of January next year after its arrival, and will be taken to its next destination, Maldives. Officials of the Football Federation of Sri Lanka and the sponsors officially informed President Maithripala Sirisena of the trophy's arrival yesterday during the launch of the commemorative stamp and first day cover to celebrate the 50th anniversary of the Ministry of Sports. The ceremony was held at the official residence of the President.
You are watching Sri Lanka's premier news channel, Derana 24/7.
Good evening and welcome to the Weather Centre. Now, just as it was yesterday, temperatures tomorrow will be relatively mild, with only the southern and western areas of the country hitting 30 degrees Celsius around midday. The central province, especially Kandy, will be much cooler, 23 degrees. Now, given this is a holiday season, no one wants rain about. And to large parts, in many areas tomorrow will be shower-free. That said, however, some rains are likely in the parts of central, Suburgamua, western and southern provinces in the afternoons and also in the evenings. Now that's it from the Weather Centre, and up next is your City by City forecast.
Well, it's Friday, so as usual, let's end the working week on a high note with a good story of the week. Tonight's story comes to us from New York with a little help from Santa Claus and a community in Pine Bush. New York photographer Wendy Wellington came up with a way to give presents to children of families in need and capture their joy forever.
Wendy Wellington was inspired to help struggling families at Christmas with magical moments with Santa, where she takes free family portraits. She hands out invitations to local teachers and nurses who pick the families going through tough times during the holidays. Here we go. Each family is invited for a special photo shoot at Wendy's studio.
You are watching Sri Lanka's #1 news channel, Other Derana 24/7.
That's it from the News Centre for tonight, but you can connect with us on Facebook by logging on to facebook.com/first@9 or follow us on Twitter at twitter.com/first@9. Enjoy the weekend ahead, but before we go, we'd like to leave you with a simple message of hope.